So, talking about diversity, um, I know we talked about it previously, but just discussing the topic of diversity is one of those opportunities where on the one hand we've talked about for decades, let's be honest, and on the other hand we still don't have it built into our cultures to the point where it's working. We've talked about this since the 90s, especially, and we've talked about it in the 80s, but in the 90s especially, it's been front and center. Now we've approached this from a compliance standpoint. We've tried to bring it in from recently we tag it as DEI, with B being belonging. Well, we've tried some different approaches, but ultimately at the end of the day, it comes to us as leaders to bring it in as a part of our culture, part of our regular culture. So what does it take? I think one of the comments that I saw from a student was talking about how do we know that we've achieved diversity, and another student said, "Hey, how do you achieve diversity?" As leaders, it's important for us to work within our groups and our teams and individuals to say, how do we, what does diversity mean? How do we define diversity? And how do we talk about that openly and amongst ourselves? Critical point. So many different points of diversity. What does that mean? The differences from different perspectives. Yes, we're talking about race. We're talking about gender. We're talking about color. And I'll be honest. Over the last 30 years in HR, right? And they say, look at me and say, hey, you're a white male. What do you know about diversity? Like, I've been a proponent and an advocate of diversifying the workforce from day one. And he said, well, you're a white man. Well, yes, I am, but like that's as diverse as anything. What else do you know about me? What else do you know about my background, my education, the family upbringing? Well, you don't understand. I think we can step back and say, well, let's take a look at what this means. Now, I'll tell you where my primary understanding comes from. In terms of understanding, one of my first professional colleagues was Dory. Love her to death. I reached out to her last year just to say, look, I appreciate you. I love you. Dory, she's an African American female, right? Loved her. She came to work with me at the fire district. My first professional gig was at a fire and rescue district in the Portland metro area. And I started there as an intern and during my MBA program. And so as an HR generalist, and so what does that mean? I'm generally doing everything in HR, right? Doing all kinds of things. Well, we hired Dory in as an HR assistant, and she was way above her pay, way above her pay grade, right? I mean, she just knew everything, did everything. She was amazing, absolutely amazing. But I didn't see her as an African American woman. I just saw her as Dory, as a colleague. She was so smart, so good with people. She was amazing, and just the way she worked, the way she talked, the way that she did things, she just connected with people so well. I gained so much from her in my engagement with her. After about 8 months, she had an opportunity with Nike. That she just couldn't resist, and so she went to go work for Nike, and she's done some other things since then. That's been huge in the community there in Portland. But that really established my foundation about what it's like to work with, with African Americans and with females. And since then, I just figured that's just what it's like. It's just normal everyday engagement, and that's always been my perspective. I haven't thought twice about it. And that's really been my basis to say that's the kind of culture that I want to work with, and that's the kind of culture that we establish is how I'm working with Dory. So for 30 years, just as we've established what is diversity, what does equality mean, what does the workplace mean, my teams, my workplaces, that's the Dory standard. That's kind of how it's been. So as we enter into the world of what does diversity mean, you need to set your own standards, but you need to understand what that means and where you go. Taking a look at people as people, that's going to be the start. Now, you could take a look at people from the diversity standpoint of, hey, it's a program. That makes it a little bit tough, but there are some elements to it. On the one hand, you could say, hey, what's the value to me as an organization? Well, as an organization, as you diversify your staff, they're coming in from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different upbringings. They're going to come up with different ideas. They're going to understand your customers better. They're going to understand your markets better. They're going to have different skill sets. they're going to have different perspectives that are going to help you have more competencies and a wider range of understanding if you tap into those differences effectively. And that's up to you as the leader to understand where they're coming from and to optimize their engagement in their interactions and build upon those as they're with you on your team. That's the true benefit that you get from this diversity, is how can they come into the organization and be used to generate more and more. But that's up to you to engage them and really include them in everything once they're here. That's huge. Now, to them, here's the deal. Because they come from different backgrounds, they're oftentimes marginalized. Oftentimes we have people from different, females in traditionally male industries, or vice versa. We have females in management positions, for example, that are traditionally male roles. We have individuals that come from racial backgrounds that have a tough time breaking into industries, or we have socioeconomic conditions that are tough. You have rural areas that don't have the finances within the schools, within the areas to break out of those and give them the same educational opportunities or career opportunities. There are disadvantages in these areas that may need a hand, and so we as employers, we as leaders, can offer these types of resources to these individuals and these groups to give them the helping hand. And this is where equity comes in. Not everybody starts off with the same resources that we do or that anybody does. And so while diversity is widening the net, casting the net and say, hey, let's invite everybody, equity is about reaching out and giving people a hand who need that extra hand to bring them in. But to them, I mean, this is where we can bring them in and give them the extra tools to bring them up to speed. But again, once they're in, this is treating them like people and getting the most out of them and helping them to get the most out of themselves. Now, once they're in, here's the challenge to most situations with diversity, and we've talked about this a little bit. But again, once they're in, it's up to you as the leader to set the culture. A lot of managers see it as, well, this is just another HR program. This is just another HR situation that I need to manage, or it's just another HR training, and it's not. For those situations where diversity is seen as another HR program, it's seen as a problem. And then if it's a problem, then why do we focus on it? Then it becomes compliance. And if it's compliance, then I have to check boxes. I have to make sure everybody takes training, and I just have to. I'm in the gotcha mode. Let's make sure that nobody steps on these areas so that we don't get in trouble. When diversity is approached that way, nobody wants to play. And so anybody who fits into these special categories, well, you fit into these categories, I don't want to say anything that'll get us into trouble. Well, that's going to set a nasty tone because, hey, I don't want to work with this person because what happens if I say the wrong thing? I don't want to bring that person into this group because what happens if we say something or we tell the wrong joke or we say. That's what a compliance-based scenario looks like. That's a real world situation. On the other hand, if we bring them in as people and we create a culture of standards where we accept everybody, but we lay the foundation of culture where we don't tell those types of jokes, we don't have those kinds of conversations, we create a value-based environment where we accept everybody and we respect everybody, then we don't have to worry about what we say and what we do because we're accepting to everybody. That's different. When we start treating people like people, it's different. You see, going back to one of my first comments, I said, look, for the last 25 years, and we look at how many problems we had before, how many lawsuits we had 25 years ago compared to today, and it hasn't changed or it's gone up. What's happening? Well, I mean, we train all the time. We have all these things all the time. What's wrong? Like, we're treating the symptoms. We're treating the symptoms. When we take a look at harassment training, discrimination training, we're trying to treat the symptoms. It's like going to the doctor with a fever and saying, doctor, help me reduce the fever. And they give you some Tylenol, they give you some other things to bring the fever down. They can bring the fever down just fine. But without understanding what's causing the fever, it'll kill you. Fever will go down, but you're still dying. When we get to the root cause of what's causing this, it comes down to one thing, right? It's treating other people with respect. It's civility. An author by the name of Christine Porath works over at Harvard. She's done a lot of work in this area. It comes down to civility. right? Diversity, the backbone of diversity is civility, treating each other with respect, understanding each other, treating each other like humans, fellow human beings. That's what it comes down to. And when we build in elements of civility, treating each other with the platinum rule, not the golden rule. The golden rule is treating others as we'd like to be treated. But let's be honest, we've learned to be treated pretty, and we've learned to tolerate a lot. But when we start to treat each other with more respect than what we are willing to receive, we use the platinum rule to treat other people better. That's where civility comes in, and that's where diversity starts to work out. We recognize the differences. We say, that's great. When we actually shop for those differences, we say, I want those differences on my team because that's going to make my team better, stronger. That's where we start to make the difference. So, back to the original statement. How do we know when we achieve diversity? I'm not sure if you'll ever know that you achieve diversity. But if you understand what diversity is and those differences, what are the qualities that you're looking for? Because it may differ. It's going to differ based on your organization and your team. What are you looking for? What are the differences that will help you make the difference? They'll help you achieve your goals and objectives. Define those. Talk about them as a team. Understand them. Be open about it, but then be respectful about it. Be aware of it. Include them once they're on your team. Engage with them and be the leader that you need to be. As you do that, you're going to create an environment that's welcoming, that's engaging, that'll not only attract the people that you want, but they'll keep the people that you want for a really long time.